welcome back to another episode of Hope Unplugged. It is Wednesday. That means there's a new episode of Hope Unplugged. This is that episode. I'm Jentezen Harris, the Creative Director here at Hu.Church. I'm with Pastor Ryan Harris once again. We just can't seem to get enough of him. We just keep having him back on, and he keeps funding the chais. So
I'm a cheap guest.
He's a cheap guest, and he brings me a chai. I have to pay for the other folks to have their own chais. So when I have you on, you bring me one, and it's kind of a different taste on it.
I was still waiting on a Mad Goat sponsorship.
we continue to wait.
Yeah.
I had a funny thing I just thought about was a coworker of mine who watches Hope Unplugged had said she didn't really understand our humor because it was pretty dry.
Didn't understand our humor.
Because she was like, would you actually be a Walmart cart pusher? And I said, I have no doubt that if he actually wasn't a pastor.
That wasn't funny. That was funny. I mean, I also would have entertained a career in law. Like as a lawyer. My problem with that would have been the amount of school I would have had to go to. That would have been a lot
of school.
Because I don't think I could have done 8 years of college.
Yeah.
But I love to argue.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So lawyer would have been something, I guess, honestly, maybe if I would have stopped short of lawyer, then maybe I would have got into politics. Because I like to argue.
You are very political, yeah.
I like to argue.
But not on the stage, you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not political as in politics, but you like to be political in arguing.
Yeah, I like to debate things. I like to what I really enjoy doing in a safe setting, because culturally now there are so few such settings. But in a setting where nobody's going to hate each other after it's over, I like to argue with people I agree with. Just bring the other perspective. I just enjoy doing that. I enjoy the argument. And so sometimes I will argue with people that I completely agree with.
Knowing my grandfather, I think I know where you get that from.
Yeah, it is DNA.
He loves to argue.
Yeah.
And so family get-togethers are very interesting with y'all.
Oh, yeah. Because that's probably one of the best examples of where I do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I will argue with your grandpa, with your uncle, up and down the street about things that we all agree about.
Yeah.
But we just argue because we enjoy the argument.
So with grandpa, one of my favorite things that we ever argued about was we were literally, if you don't know my grandpa, literally playing Mario Kart. And in Mario Kart, if you hit these like poles that are sticking out the ground, they spin you around, and then you get a boost, like the car boost. I'm telling him that it makes me go faster. I won first place in the race. I was going faster, and he said that slows you down, and he was convinced that it slowed you down. So it didn't matter what you said. His point was his point, and he wasn't going to let you debate him about it because he is always right.
In his mind, yes.
And that's where you get it from.
Well, in a way. Except I am actually always right. So that's the difference there. Is he has the perspective that he's always right. I have the experience. See?
Selah.
Yeah, that's powerful. Well, thank you guys for watching today. We really dropped some wisdom.
That's not it. That is not it. So, if you want to take a second, you weren't here Sunday.
Right.
He's backsliding, y'all. No, I'm teasing. He was in Paducah, Kentucky.
I was at the Golden Nugget.
The Golden Nugget.
I was doing my best to, make some extra money for the church on the blackjack tables. So, didn't
unfortunately, your lack of knowledge of that table cost you all of your money.
Yeah, evidently, blackjack on your cell phone and blackjack.
Very different.
Yeah, it's a lot different with an actual dealer and money on the line. No, actually, I was back home in Paducah, Kentucky, preaching at the Faith Center which funny story is, or full circle moment, is a church that is meeting in the building that I went to fourth grade in.
Wow.
So when I was in fourth grade, I remember vividly one of the core memories of my life was that in fourth grade, me and my cousin and some of the other boys in our class would go into the bathroom and roughhouse around and stuff because the teacher didn't come with us. And we, just play rowdy and run around, all this kind of stuff. And the pastor of the church walked in and caught us all and said, "Boys, we're going to the principal's." And I'll never forget that because I had a rule at home that if you ever get in trouble at school, you're getting spanked at home. So, I knew I'm getting a spanking today.
Yeah.
Only catch was principal nor my teacher told my dad that I got in trouble that day. And so I didn't tell him I didn't get in trouble, but I didn't offer the information that I did. I walked in that lack of transparency for about 2 months. And then one night, I'll never forget, this is the way my memory works. We rented the movie Hocus Pocus, which is not a spiritual movie. We had not started to watch it yet.
Yeah.
But somewhere in my head, I was convinced Jesus would return in the next 25 minutes. And so I ran into my parents' bedroom and said, "I have to confess something. I got in trouble 2 months ago on Thursday afternoon."
Wow.
Yeah. So, and now full circle, 32 years later, 31 years later, I'm preaching in that building. So that's pretty crazy. It's a different church now.
That's very cool.
It was Cornerstone then. It's now Faith Center. And the lead pastor of Faith Center was the youth pastor at the Baptist church where we practiced, our basketball team practiced.
Yeah.
He was always around. And then Pastor Jeff Carroll, who a lot of our Hope Unlimited people know, he's on staff there now. And he was my basketball coach.
Yeah.
And that's what I teased a lot because this is a very spirit-filled church now. Obviously, they had me come preach. You'd have to be spirit-filled or stupid.
Right.
Because I'm not really one that fits in the quieter, non-spirit-filled setting very well. But I teased several times, when I left town, these guys were all Baptist. And now they're Pentecostals.
They're Pentecostal.
So it's a really cool full circle thing.
Yeah.
Being able to go home, obviously being able to go get some Pizza Inn.
Yeah.
Which in Paducah, you've probably heard of Pizza Inn, but you've never been to Pizza Inn until you've been in to Pizza Inn Paducah.
Yeah.
On Joe Clifton Road, because they have the greatest pizza buffet in the history of the world.
How was that Reese's?
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Because the thing is, their pizzas, it's all right. And you can order whatever you want. They'll make whatever you want on the, you tell them, you think of something. You say, "I want da-da-da-da-da." And they'll make that pizza for you on the buffet.
Yeah.
But where they're just amazing is they have a plethora of dessert pizza options. And my favorite is the Reese's Pieces, but they had...
Would you say they have a plethora?
Is a plethora.
A plethora.
A plethora. That means many. Many.
A plethora.
Is a plethora. Yes.
That's
yes, they have a plethora of dessert pizzas.
That was from the Three Amigos, right?
Yes.
That's a great movie.
Do you know what plethora means? No,
no,
Jefe.
No, Jefe.
Well, then why would you tell me you have a plethora if you do not know what a... I'm so sorry, Jefe. Yeah, that's classic.
Man. Well, I get made fun of a lot for even watching some of those movies because, but that's how my family grew up,
Exactly.
So the Three Amigos, the Andy Griffith Show.
Oh, yeah.
I Love Lucy.
This is what your Uncle Tyler says, and I'm not opposed to it. He said, "I have yet to run into a life issue that I couldn't address by watching an episode of Andy Griffith."
Absolutely.
They covered it all.
They got it all.
They covered it all.
They seriously got it all. But The Three Amigos. We need to watch that again. It's a great movie.
It
It's
is
a great
good
film.
movie.
But
Fantastic.
so the experience of being in the full circle moment, how did the house respond? Because obviously everyone that was here, some folks didn't get to come out because of the snow in Illinois.
Yeah.
But Kentucky freaks out when there's snow.
Well, yeah, that was the kicker. When I got there Saturday night, it was 50 degrees, and it had rained 3.5 inches that day. So they were having flooding. But the forecast said that somewhere around 3 in the morning, the rain was going to turn into snow. But nobody believed because it's 50 degrees outside. Right. Well, sure enough, about 3 o'clock in the morning, rain turned over into snow. They got about an inch, maybe an inch and a half of snow. They're not used to it. They don't have road crews. They don't know how to handle it. People don't know how to drive in it. So I got a text message 7:30 in the morning saying, "Hey, we're going to have church, but don't be surprised if the crowd's pretty low."
Yeah.
And so I had a pretty low expectation, but we got there and got started, and it was about half full, and I was like, "Okay, this is good." And I was there with Pastor Jeff, and I was like, "Hey, it looks like a good turnout." He's like, "Well, this ain't, the way it is normal." I was like, I know. But by the end of the first song, the balcony had filled up. The floor was 85% full.
Damn.
And I would say there was probably at least 400, 450 there, and they run like 500 on a normal Sunday. So it was
Sunday.
close.
Yeah.
It was probably at least 85% of their regular attendance was there, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And we had powerful service. Worship was powerful. And then they definitely responded well to my ministry.
Yeah.
I will tell you, coming back, the senior pastor, I had only met a couple of times, and I'd never met his wife. And so they took us to lunch after church on Sunday, and he looked at her and he said, "Who did he remind you of while he was preaching?" And she said, "Oh, hands down, Bishop Kevin Wallace."
There you go.
And for me, that was worth the price of the trip.
There you go.
Because I'm a big Kevin Wallace fan.
Well,
and so anybody wants to compare me to him, I'll take that. That to me, like for because not all of our viewers probably have any clue who Kevin Wallace is.
No.
That's the equivalent to me of TD Jakes. Like he's like TD Jakes now.
Yeah.
In my mind, he's on that level of pulpiteer. Like we're not just talking about like ministry, church level. I'm talking about like dude can preach.
Right.
Because to me, it's not really about TD Jakes. TD Jakes doesn't impress me because he has the Potter's house.
Yeah.
That doesn't impress me.
Right.
What impresses me is to sit and listen to him articulate scripture.
Yeah.
I'm like, shoot, man.
That guy understands scripture to a different level. Yeah.
How he can take you on a journey.
And interpret it. Yeah.
And one of the things I love about Jakes is how regularly he can take you on a journey where you're not completely certain where you're going till you get there.
Till you get there.
And then when you get there, you're like, oh, yeah. I love that.
That hits, yeah.
And so I try to do that when I can. I can't do that every weekend, but it seems like every time he does that.
I was going to say, and I watched the first 2 minutes of the Paducah sermon, and I loved how you opened it up. If for those of you, go to Faith Center Paducah on Facebook and just skip to the part of the sermon, but was how you opened the sermon was you just dove right in, and it was funny because it was like you said, I mean, you always build up here, but when you built up, you were like, and that's who I am.
Well, the thing was, it's where I'm from, but 95% of the people in the room didn't have any reference point for me. But they had been telling them all about how, and so I'm like, I might as well show them
preach
what
the house
my
down
style
in the first 2 minutes.
Show them my style.
Yeah.
So they're not sitting there wondering what's coming.
Yeah.
And then once they see that I can bring the goods a little bit, then I'll calm down and introduce myself.
Yeah.
And so I that was because when I was traveling, I have this 5-minute spill where I talk about people mislabeling God. Some think he's dumb, some think he's dead, some think he's done. And like back in the day where that I actually originated that was when I was traveling with a choir and I would be given 5 minutes to testify.
Yeah.
And I'd do that 5-minute spill and blow a place open. Like
Yeah.
that would end the service
Yeah.
half the time.
Yeah.
And so now 30 or 20 years later, every once in a while I'll pull that back out when I'm going somewhere where they don't know anything about me,
Yeah.
because it's a really good way to show them who I am so they can calm down and be like, okay, this guy can preach, so I'm not going to be sitting here nervous about what's going to happen.
Right.
Because I
Right.
know what that's like. I feel the anxiety of the congregation sometimes when I bring in a speaker they don't know,
Yeah.
because they're like, oh boy, what are we in for?
Yeah.
And I hate that, because I, who brought them in, no, trust me.
Yeah.
If I'm having them preach, they're going to do okay.
It's gonna be.
They're
Yeah.
going to do
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
But so I like to take that off the pastor's plate when I go somewhere and be like, let me show them
Yeah.
this is going to be a good experience.
Yeah.
And then we can get into what
Right.
we're talking about
Right.
today. So yeah, it went well.
Well, that's
was
great.
fun.
Yeah, we had a really good service here as well. I was in attendance. I stayed back. I had a couple of team members who were out, so we're continuing on this cycle of fixing the soundboard. And I again, we can give up a text to give, MILLIONS, but
Yeah.
we're doing the best. I'm doing the best. I'm up here most days of the week trying to fix the problems that arise. I'm Pastor Doug's understudy, and so I try and help fix the problems that I can fix. But we had a very good worship set, and then Pastor Doug, I'm telling you, I said he brought the house down for me.
That's what I've heard.
I felt like Pastor Doug had a spotlight on me the entire service, and it felt like it was just me and him in the room. And, I'm running the camera, but it's just like he's like staring into my soul. He was just looking at the camera, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he talked about forgiveness, and I'm going to make a couple posts this week about it. But it really stuck out to me is how forgiveness, he said, he worded it as, it's really not for the other person, it's for yourself.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, well, I can't forgive you because you did that to me. But you have to realize at the same time, they're probably not thinking a single thing about you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're going on with their day. They didn't even think that hurt you like it did. Maybe they meant it to, maybe they didn't. But at the end of the day, you took it and you put it on yourself. That God didn't ask us to do that. He said to cast our cares on him.
Yeah.
So when you think about forgiveness, never in my mind did it cross that it was for me. It was
Yeah.
always that I can't forgive you because you did that to me.
You can't
know?
let you off that easy.
Right.
You need
and
to
so
pay
you
for
kind
it.
of hold on to it, and
But how do we make them pay for it?
yeah,
Like, yeah, it's a powerful concept.
it is very. And he broke it down. I'm gonna post that also. But he talked about, he grabbed a tissue box and flung it into the crowd, and he said, "This is what God asked us to do. It's just it's the same way." And to me, it's very selfish to think about, I am cool with God forgiving me, and God just forgives and lets it go. He doesn't even bring it back up. But then when I forgive someone else, it's not the same. It's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't work like that. God's cool, but I can't forgive like God, but that's not what God called us to do. He called us to completely forgive. So this is a new season I'm walking in of complete forgiveness. But that sermon really touched home for me. I told PD, I said, I don't, and he did it in under 45 minutes. That's record timing for PD. I'm teasing. I love him. But it was a really great sermon. We got some cool stuff going on here. Some stuff coming up is Hope University starting back up in the spring. Do you want to kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
It'll be
for us?
actually,
or not the spring.
this coming Wednesday will be the first session. It's going to be 7 weeks this time. We're going to be covering, the course is going to be called Foundations.
Okay.
And basically we're going to be talking about the basis of all of our belief system. Why do we preach the gospel? Why do we worship the way we worship? Why do we believe the things that we believe? They're all based on these foundations. We're going to talk about the Bible, why we believe the Bible is inspired, how to interact with the Bible. We'll have a whole night on the Bible. We're going to talk about, and these are the theological terms, We're going to talk about Christology. That's what we believe about Jesus. We're going to talk about theology. That's what we believe about God. We're talking about pneumatology. That's what we believe about the Holy Spirit. We're going to talk about soteriology, which is the theology behind salvation, what it means to be saved. We're going to talk about eschatology. That is the theology of what we believe the end will be like. We're going to cover all those one topic at a time, 7 weeks in a row. It's very, very important information for people who have attended church here for a long time. It's going to be probably a lot of review because you would know this. If you're newer, this is really something you want to get into because it's going to give you some why. Now, one of the things about Hope University is we launched this last fall, and we had a very faulty experience in the sense of due to 2 unforeseen circumstances where we had funeral visitations that precluded 2 of the weeks. We had to combine some of the courses together, all that kind of stuff. So we lost a lot of the leeway because what Hope University, in my mind, is it is a sharing of information, but it's also conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping this semester to get more into is we'll share some information, but then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
What does that mean to us? Do you understand that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. We're open to that kind of conversation because I think that's where growth really happens is when we begin to not just receive information, but begin to work it out by applying it in our own lives, by asking questions, by having conversations, by getting other perspectives. And so I'm really hoping that dynamic is a lot better this time around because we're going to have, because we're going to say 6 to 7:30. The teaching time will be 45 minutes tops. Like we will get the information out in that first 45 minutes, and then the conversation part will go until people are done.
Yeah.
Like about 7:30, unless it's just like really phenomenal conversation and everybody's engaged, I'll probably be like, okay, we're gonna call it for tonight because I respect people's schedules.
Right.
But that's kind of what it's gonna look like. The goal of Hope University is for it to become something that we do in the spring and the fall for 4 to 8 weeks at a time. And my goal ultimately is to have multiple electives so that it wouldn't be everybody that's coming out to Hope University is in foundations, or everybody that comes to Hope University is in DNA of a Leader, which we did last time, but that we would have, a course on prayer, a course on the book of John, whatever, like have 3 or 4 different options at least where people could engage in something they're interested in, but all of us be here together, growing together, because I believe where we're headed, both as a church, but more importantly, as a people in the world we live in, we have got to start going deeper than just Sunday morning Christianity.
Yeah.
And I love small groups, and we have some small groups that are doing phenomenal, but we still have probably 75% or more of the people who come here on Sunday morning who have yet to connect with a small group.
Yeah.
And some of them, it's because they're uncomfortable going to somebody's house. So that's where we're saying, you know what? We'll do something in the church building then.
Yeah.
And then there's other people who's like, well, I would never want to go to a church building. Well, that's why we have people have stuff in their house.
Yeah.
We're trying to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Because I learned a long time ago as a pastor, I can be frustrated that people aren't doing what I'm asking them to do, or I can find out how to do things they'll be willing to do.
Yeah.
Ask them to do things they'll be willing to do.
Right.
And so that's where Hope University is just another prong of that. We're not replacing small groups.
No.
What we're doing is putting an addendum on it and saying, for all y'all that the 75+% of you that approve in small groups are just not for you the way we have them formatted, we're going to do this too.
Yeah.
See if this fits.
Right.
And The sad thing, though, is if it's like last time, DNA of a Leader, about 75% of the people who were in there were small group leaders and active people in small groups.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the same
Yeah.
25% are taking advantage of everything. And where that frustrates me is I love that 25% and I love the other 75%. I just think to the other 75%, you're missing out on so much
Yeah.
good stuff
Yeah.
you could get from relationship
Right.
with other people. You're relying too much on me and what I can give you informationally. The transformation in your life is going to come when you get in relationship with other people who are headed in the same direction as you and you do life together.
Yeah.
And that is my heart's cry. I'm so hungry for our church to do life together,
Yeah.
to not just show up on Sunday
Right.
for the show.
Right.
That's not enough.
No.
It's not going to get us through.
No. Well, and that's even in worship, is learning that we're not here to be entertained. It's to actually get involved. Worship, but like you said, it's not just in here, it's outside, or even coming back for our Wednesday night. So with Hope University, would that be in the youth room now?
It looks like it will be this time.
Because I don't think Pastor Doug's going to let us walk on that court.
No, I don't think.
Or even scoot a table on that
I'm really
court.
glad that we got that done, so we'll be able to look at it and take pictures of it. Because I don't believe we're going to be allowed to use
it.
It's
real pretty.
Ever again.
I made a joke with him that I had walked through there to use the bathroom, and I thought he almost had a heart attack. That he values that court dearly.
Which I think because they painted the lines today, I think this coming Sunday, people will be able to actually see it. They may have to put little hospital booties on if they want to walk on it. But I think people are going to be able to see it, and I think they're going to be incredibly impressed. Whole place looks like
it's gorgeous.
It looks like we just built a new gym.
It does.
It really does. Made the whole place look brand
clean.
new.
Yeah.
Looks a lot bigger.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. And for the basketball players in the house, because of reconfiguring some things, we now have a full-size court. So with corner three-point shots.
Corner three-pointers.
So for all you corner three-point shooters, you're going to get your extra point now.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So then we had also missed a couple of questions from last week. I'm going to go ahead and pull those up for you. Okay, so let's see. How about them Cowboys? No, I'm teasing.
Yeah.
That's a rough one.
I'll bring that up.
Okay, let's see. What is your favorite worship song in this season and why?
That's a good one. I really think right now it's still it's between, there's like three major ones. One, I really love Charity Gale's I Believe.
Okay.
Which Dave Reed's promised me that's coming on Sunday morning soon. Dave. He promised me that like a few weeks ago. He said, next week, we're going to do that song. So it's coming. I Believe by Charity Gale. I love that song. There's another song by, I believe it's Red Rocks Worship. You Won't Let Me Down.
Yeah.
There's no way you'll ever let me down. But the one that just crazy resonates with this last season of my life is Brandon Lake's Hard Fought Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Because that phrase that he says in there, I'm going to keep singing until my soul catches up with my song.
Yeah.
Like, that phrase describes how I've felt for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Is I've had to come to church and worship when I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had to sing the song when I didn't feel it.
Right.
But I know if I keep singing, my soul will catch up to my
Right.
song.
Right.
And so I love that song right now.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing. And I guess he just remixed it with Jelly Roll. So I mean, there's that too.
There you go. There you go. Get some secular
Yeah.
artists involved.
Yeah.
Jelly Roll.
Jelly Roll.
Jelly Roll. Yeah, no, I love that song. I remember especially through that season where we were going through, and I'd go on a lot of runs, and I would just have that song on repeat. And it is that phrase where I remember coming back from Kentucky or Evansville, and I had sat in the very back, and this was a couple weeks after we had the transition between worship pastors, and I had sat in the very back, but the Sunday prior to that, I was given a word that I was supposed to be a worshiper. And you've known me for a long time, I hate attention with a passion. And so even doing this podcast like freaks me out because I hate attention. And so, but I remember I was sitting in the back and God was like, I just called you a worshiper, and now you're going to sit in the back and sit with your twiddling your thumb. He's like, that's not what I called you to be. And I remember walking all the way to the front, and then the worship hit so much different because that's what we're called to do. Is no matter what situation, no matter what you're feeling, is God's always called us to worship.
Yep.
And so that's what it doesn't matter what your situation looks like. In fact, I believe that sometimes in your hardest situation, when you worship, it breaks something off.
Oh,
of you.
yeah. Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. No, you never waste your time worshiping.
No.
And you don't. The thing about worship is every time you do it, you don't have that moment of feeling this great release.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. Sometimes you worship God and you feel like, I don't even know why I did that because I didn't feel anything.
Right.
But your worship is never wasted.
No.
He's paying attention, and your worship is moving the spirit realm. It's moving the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it's attracting the promise of God in your direction.
Yeah.
So you never waste your time worshiping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never.
No, absolutely. Let's try another question. Okay. How do you balance being a dad and husband while also being our pastor?
That's a good question. Honestly, it's something that you have to live out, and you have to mess up occasionally to figure out the balance on that. I knew I was taught raised growing up that family should always be important than ministry, and the reason being is because as a minister, quote unquote, which would be everybody's a minister, honestly, every person has a responsibility to share the gospel with the world, with their sphere of influence. But as someone who's vocationally employed at the church, I have to remember that while my job to minister to others is very important and something I enjoy very much, my primary ministry will always be my family.
Yeah.
And it would be a sad testimony to win the city of Danville, the state of Illinois, the entire country of America, why not all 8.2 billion people on earth to Jesus, and lose my children to hell?
Yeah.
That would not be success.
No.
That would be a horrible, horrible thing to have to reconcile. And so I began early with that mindset, and that was one of the things that I was very clear with the board here, because this was the first church I had where, when I was in Des Moines before here, I was a solo pastor. While I was there, I ended up building the church to the point where I hired a secretary and a part-time youth pastor. So I started to have staff,
Yeah.
started to have more of that during the week structure. But this was the first place where there's full-time staff, someone in the building Monday through Friday, offices are open, that kind of thing. And so when you don't have office hours and those kind of things, then it's really easy to balance family and ministry, because if somebody would call at 8:30 at night, need me at the hospital, well, I would just spend the next day with my family because I had to miss the evening, that kind of thing. But when you had those two, now you got daily responsibilities, and you might still get the nighttime emergency. So I had to be very clear up front, I'm not going to sacrifice my family. And so there are going to be birthday parties I don't show up to. There are going to be, small groups that I don't attend. There are going to be things that, there may be ministry functions that I'm not able to be at. I'm going to try to be at everything I can. But if it comes down to my family suffering because I'm so busy, I'm going to come back to what my family needs. And thankfully, the board that I had when I came, and every board ever since that we've assembled since I've been here, has been incredibly supportive of that. And in fact said, no, Pastor, that's what we want for you. And it's amazing because it's paying off. Everything we've done as parents was theoretically successful until now that I have technically 2 adult children. And just the other day, my wife was approached by someone from our congregation who said, hey, I've been meaning to talk to you for a while, which if you're not a pastor, you don't understand how scary that phrase is.
Yeah.
Because people rarely mean to talk to you for a while about something good.
Right.
It usually means I'm about to drop a bomb on you.
Yeah.
And she simply said, I've watched your children grow up. And she said, I am amazed to see the legacy that you and your husband are passing down to them, because I see them worship, I see them love God, and I see them being genuine in how they interact with people. And she said that I just want you to know I've noticed that, and I see that. And just this weekend, the pastor's wife at the church, like I said, I'd never met her before. Only Judah and Maddie were with me. But she said, Pastor Ryan, you have amazing children. And I preached on generational impartation. And some lady out of the crowd came to me and said, I watched your kids all through worship, and I saw them, how they worshiped and interacted with God. And so she said, when you got up and said you were going to preach on generational impartation, I said to myself, I'm going to listen to what he has to say, because this man isn't talking about what he thinks.
Yeah.
He's telling me what he knows. And so I've seen the payoff on the other side. Because would there have been more quote unquote ministerial success if I would have said, forget family responsibilities, I'm going to work like crazy, I'm going to be it, I'm going to push. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I do know is I wish our ministry was larger. I wish our church had grown and had progressed beyond where we are today. But the greatest thing I will ever do on this earth is raise a legacy in my children. And right now I feel like by the grace of God, that's going all right. And so I have no regrets with my choice to put family first.
Absolutely.
And I would recommend anybody that is in any level of ministry, because I've had to talk to people in our church who are not full-time ministry people, but they're getting involved in the ministries of this church. And I see them over committing themselves.
Yeah.
And I've sat them down and said, you got to stop.
Yeah.
You got to calm down because your family is more important than anything we do here.
Yeah.
Anything we do here. Because I believe nobody believes more in what we do. Nobody has sacrificed greater for what we do and where we are. However, it's not as important as my children and my wife.
Yeah.
And that's where everybody should stand, because that's the main thing. If you can take your family to heaven with you, then anybody else that tags along, that's like icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But you want your family,
Yeah.
and that comes from making them priority and making God priority for them.
Yeah.
And I could preach a while on that. But this
Yeah.
is not a service or a sermon.
Right. Right. So I think we'll do one more question.
Okay.
What does your study time look like?
You know, it's unique, because it really depends. Being a pastor, there are so many different types of messages that I produce. Like, for instance, the best, what I like best is when God drops this concept into my mind, and then I just begin to develop that and work with that and pray through that, and it becomes and it just kind of starts to take shape through that. I may consult a book here or there. I may Google this or that to try to get some content to connect with it. But for the most part, it comes from just this God-breathed idea that I just kind of formulate. But other times, you know, I've got to address certain passages of scripture, stuff like that. And it's not so much a concept comes from God, but it's just like I'm teaching on this topic.
Yeah.
And so then that's very book heavy and computer driven, where I'm searching out what other people have said about it and reading different commentaries, listening to other sermons, all that kind of stuff. But where it really because I do a lot of this very privately, like Jentezen would know. My family doesn't see a lot of how that goes on, because sometimes it really is literally just all right here.
Yeah.
And so I may be sitting on the couch and they think I'm watching television, but really in my head, I mean, there's something on TV, but I'm not paying attention to the TV. In my head, I'm going, well, that third point, what would be a good word for that? Let me and then I'll get out my phone, synonyms for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff happens. But what happens mostly, and I reference this because just a couple weeks ago, Shantae saw me on a Saturday night. I forget why it was that our normal routine was out of whack, and so she just saw me walking around, and my family knows that sometimes I pace when I'm anxious.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "What's wrong with you?" What you don't all know is I also pace the process. And so on Saturday nights, usually when everybody's in bed, for about an hour, I just walk the house, just back and forth, back and forth. And what I'm doing the whole time I'm walking is I'm thinking through what I've studied, what I've been preparing, and I'm trying to think of how I should say it. I'm thinking through things I shouldn't say. That's a funny big part.
Yeah.
Is I think of, well, I say it and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't say it like that.
Yeah. Right.
And sometimes it doesn't. I don't catch it before I said it, but I really do try to process it the night before so that I don't say something really stupid.
Right.
Because first of all, if I ever when I say something stupid, I'm not really saying something offensive.
Yeah.
I'm saying something that my children can take and go, "Oh, Daddy said that," you know, where I word something wrong and it could mean something else, and because they never let me let that go.
No.
I mean, you hound me about, and so I think a lot about that too. It's like, well, if I say it that way,
Yeah.
Jentezen's gonna get on my case, and he'll never live it down.
Yeah.
He's gonna be giggling and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And so, but I pace and process,
Yeah.
and process. And so Saturday night, I'm in the motel with Madison and Judah, and I'm pacing because they're saying, Maddie's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, you don't know because you go to bed."
Yeah.
But this is what my Saturday night looks like.
Yeah.
I pace for about an hour before I can go to bed because I gotta process what I'm gonna say tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Does that answer that?
No, that absolutely answers that
Okay.
question.
I mean, the process is, I didn't learn it from anybody, and I don't think I should teach it to anybody. It is so very much my process.
Yeah.
And it works for me most of the time.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
get writer's block or
Yeah.
preacher's block, and it just like can't seem to get a concept to work. And that's frustrating. The other thing that's really frustrating is when I have what I consider to be a really good idea, a really powerful couple of phrases.
Yeah.
But I can't find a way to build it into a sermon.
Yeah.
And I can't find a sermon to stick it into.
Yeah.
And so I got it sitting there, and I'm like, man, if I could say this is good.
Yeah.
But I don't have any way to say it.
Right.
Oh, man, that ticks me off.
Yeah.
And then generally, after about a month of being ticked off about it, I come along and I'm like, I think that might fit here, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
You know, that is the torture
Yeah.
of this brain.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else we forgot to add on, or?
Not that I know
I
of.
don't think so. So
I think we covered it all.
yeah, I think we will wrap it up there. We do have some exciting stuff coming up. I will be posting the forgiveness graphics and everything throughout this week. But then at the end of the week, we're going to post the cool side-by-side picture of the gym, because that is a very cool project that we've been waiting a long time for. So very excited for everything that's coming in happening now and then happening in the future, and a lot of cool stuff in the works right now. So
Yeah.
but all right, well, thanks Pastor Ryan for coming on and
Hey, I always
chatting
enjoy chatting with you.
chatting it up with the chat
And
team.
for all 8 of the people that watch every week, we love you guys. We really do. Tell a friend.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, thanks for watching Hope Unlimited. We will see you all next week.